Hey there folks, watch this video and I'm going to be just doing what everybody else in the world of motorsport is doing at the moment and talking about this F1 rejecting Andretti's entry bid stuff, because honestly, I'm probably on the side with the majority here. It just doesn't read that well. Now there are some bits that don't look good on Andretti. I'll put the full statement I've found on Autosport in the description below. For example, F1 claimed that they had invited Andretti to meet in person to present their application, and they didn't do it. It's a bit arrogant in a way, or is presented as arrogant. It might be that Andretti were like, we didn't really see the point because we thought they were going to reject it anyway. But the way I see it, if I was Andretti and I was in that position, I honestly believe they were still going to reject me anyway. I'd do it, just so I had all of the ball in my court. But at the end of the day, I'm a person, I'm not representing, you know, multi-million-dollar business. So it's why that would be my decision. Frankly, for a business decision, it probably doesn't make that much sense. But it doesn't look good on Andretti anyways. But yeah, F1 fully outlined their rationale, and they said that it didn't involve any consultation with the current F1 teams, though they decided to examine the interests of the F1 teams without consulting them, so they kind of assumed what their interests would be. And from the conclusion, they said any 11 team should show its participation and involvement will bring a benefit. The most significant ways by being competitive, in particular by competing for podiums and for race wins. Now, I kind of get that. I get the idea that you want to have these teams compete for podiums and for race wins. How many teams won a race last season? Oh yeah, it was 2. I guess if you also include sprint races, 3. But that would still mean 3 or 4 drivers. In terms of podiums, well, there were a couple more, because there had to be. Alpine got podiums, Aston got podiums, McLaren got several podiums, Ferrari and Mercedes got podiums. So that was, what, 6 out of the 10 teams? 60% of the grid? But a solid 40% of that grid didn't get podiums. And given that 2 of them going through rebrands for this season, one of them's got 2 title sponsors and a name that I'm surprised it didn't get rejected by the FIA. I mean, I was watching Peter Brook's video on Hispania, and supposedly their name originally got rejected because it looked too generic. I don't get how, what is it, Visa Cash App RB can pass under the same guideline. But yeah, it's just the way that I guess this is. Then they also said that General Motors not jumping in would be an issue, and also because of the fact that they might join with GM starting out as a power unit manufacturer might be an issue. I mean, it didn't happen to be an issue when Jack came in as Ford, but I guess because it's like, oh, the Ford was around with the Cosworth engines for a long time. There did seem to be too much of a problem with the changes with McLaren Honda, but again, I guess, oh, McLaren established, or Honda did this in the past. It just doesn't read that right. But the thing I think that really sticks out for me, and the thing that really stings, is the conclusions and commercial assessment part, where they said, our assessment established the presence of 11 team but not on its own provide value. That the need for any new team to take a compulsory power unit supply would be damaging to the prestige and standing. That's ridiculous. When Toro Rosso took over Minardi, they were allowed to run V10s for a season, because that's what Minardi were allowed to do. They jumped around with, what, Cosworth, with Ferrari. I mean, Red Bull jumped around so many different engine suppliers before landing on Renault and then switching to Honda. Just, these customer things are the bread and butter of F1. So the idea that, oh, this new team coming in is going to be a customer. Haas came in as a customer. How many things did they buy a Ferrari? Their chassis is built by Dallara. It just seems a bit hypocritical and against the spirit of F1. And the point 16, which says, while the Andretti name carries some recognition for F1 fans, our research indicates that F1 would bring value to the Andretti brand rather than the other way round. In what world would it go the other way round? Seriously, in what world? That is an impossible metric to meet the threshold of. I mean, Ferrari is so synonymous with F1. If F1 had lost Ferrari and they were rejoining, they'd be able to, oh, but Ferrari are going to make more of a profit than us for having Ferrari rejoin. That's impossible to meet. The stuff about the operational burden, that's supposed to be where the dilution fund comes in, and they've proven they got the money behind them. And the purely kind of, adding value thing. Because talking about adding value, people would presume you mean financial. I think you could argue that Andretti would add financial. They've got the capital behind them to pay the anti-dilution fund, and then they add the capital behind them to pay it when it got upped. So they do have that capital, arguably. It just shows, even more than ever, that money talks. What would have been really good about Andretti, and this is where you would say it brings value, is you'd see these teams that are now, we've got so many more of them that would be multi-sports. I mean, Ferrari is in a similar boat to Andretti in that they're both in WEC. Andretti's also in IMSA. It's also in IndyCar. It's a group that's everywhere. It would mean that it would have a knock-on impact for wider motorsport, and that would be fantastic. So F1 just going, but it was not going to do this here. It's a bit of a joke, and it's disappointing. Is it surprising? No, not at all. Seriously, if you're saying that this team, who have got so many people working for them now from so many different backgrounds, who are employing people to go into F1, giving people a startup in F1, employing people on both sides of the Atlantic to do it, and they're all doing that within the cost cap. It's sustainable. It helps the motorsport industry wider. It helps F1 wider in more ways than just an immediate kind of, does it increase what F1 is worth as an asset? I don't know. I think my AS level in economics tells me more about the value that it brings than whatever F1 as an organisation have decided. But let me know your thoughts as always in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope to see you around. Bye for now.